Welcome back to the State of the Ark podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Kason.
This is continuing on from where we had to cut off last time. We just left the Nissan Cathedral, and we are now going back into town. And this is, what a conversation here between Sigurd, Citan, and Bart. A lot to unpack with this. So last episode, we mentioned that Bart, the seed of Bart's distrust in Sigurd was planted when Sigurd seemed to know a lot about this Car Ramsus man.
Yeah.
And Bart's like, why am I out of the loop here? Why does everyone seem to know what's going on but not me?
Yeah.
Why did you not tell me about this earlier, right? This has started getting to a boiling point. So when you go back into town, old man Mason signals you to come over into this little home where they're going to stay. And Bart pretty much calls him out. Because Sigurd's like, we got to make a plan for our next move here, right? And Bart's like, before we do that, like, step into the next room, please. It's time we had a chat here. Bart's he's sick of it. He's sick of being left in the dark. Mm-hmm. So he basically calls Sigurd out and Citan, and he's like, it's time for you to tell me what's going on here, please. And so this is a really good conversation, and we finally have some stuff revealed about Citan a little bit. So Bart says, Sig, what's up with that Gebler officer? What's the connection between you and him? You know, you sure know a lot about Solaris for some reason. And then Sigurd looks, I like that he looks at Citan. Sigurd looks over to Citan, and Citan gives him a nod. He gives him like
that was interesting.
Permission to like talk about it.
Yes.
He's like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. It's cool. You can talk about it. I liked that. They even changed the camera angle. They really put an emphasis on the fact that he like turns to Citan first before he starts talking about it. Citan nods him on.
It was very good that they put this moment here because we're starting to mistrust everyone now. Yeah. And this is a moment where they're being honest, and it kind of recaptures our trust.
So Sigurd says, all right, I'll tell you. Me and Citan here, we used to live in Solaris. And Bart's like, Solaris, you mean where Gebler's from? And Sigurd said, that's right. Solaris calls foreigners lambs. They are used as manual labor. Basically, it's slavery. And Bart says, slavery? Is that where you met him? Meaning Ramsus. Is that where you met Ramsus? Oh, okay. Citan says, yes, it was there. They probably met each other too, Citan and Sigurd. Sigurd says, we worked for the Solaris government for a short while, but we learned to dislike the methods and escaped the first chance we had. Now there's a little bit, I got a little bit confused reading this. I had the sense that Sigurd was from Solaris originally, like he was born there or something.
I got that sense too.
But he was not. He was taken from the surface to Solaris.
Yeah, they'll steal people and use them, and some special people that they steal can do more special things. Yeah. But they're still,
So he was experimented on, which you'll explain in a minute.
Yes.
But he was then brainwashed and then was allowed into the military because he showed prowess there.
Exactly. He showed that he was special, so they let him fight with the...
Yeah. So Sigurd is a lamb. He is from the surface. He's from Ave. But he was taken there. Anyways. So he says, we worked for the Solaris government for a short while, but we learned to dislike the methods and escaped the first chance we had. So Bart says, you were friends with these people? I met you when I was a kid, and we've been together ever since then. So this would have happened before then. I probably wouldn't have understood it had I heard it earlier, but why didn't you think I could deal with it now? Surely you could have told me about this, especially when you had something to do with the people who were backing that Shakhan idiot. Okay, so he's mad at Sigurd because Sigurd was once involved with Gebler, who are backing Shakhan, who usurped the throne from Bart's father. So he's pissed. Yeah. Why? You know about the people backing this guy. You didn't even tell me anything about it. I wish you had told me sooner. So Sigurd says, there's nothing I can do about that now, but there's one thing I want you to believe. We left Solaris on our own will and for our own reasons. Now that they've appeared before us, we can't just sit back and do nothing. If need be, I will give my life to stop them. And Bart says, all right, I understand, but can you elaborate a little more? What bugs me is the surface dweller thing. It's as if Solaris is in another location, like up in the clouds or something. Mm. I like it how at this part, like Bart sits down, I think, and the music really changes. And the music is really kind of creepy and uneasy as they're talking about Solaris. It really sets a nice tone for the kinds of things that they do in Solaris.
Also, they change the camera. They start moving over the city with the camera in like an overhead, like an aerial view, like a helicopter kind of view.
Yeah.
Almost as if you were a UFO looking for someone to abduct.
Yes.
And as they're talking about how the Solarians will steal people from the surface, the camera goes over to those two kids that are like playing near the front gate right when you go in, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it would be so easy. You know, they're just right there. It's crazy. Yeah,
that's a good point. So he says, yes, well, Etrenak, the capital of the Solaris Empire, is located in the skies above. Solaris is separated from the land by dimensional distortion fields known as gates. Passing between the two requires a special means of transportation, such as an airship. To get to Ave, we stowed away on a regular flight to the surface. You know, I didn't look up this term, or the name of the capital, Etrenak.
Well, Ankh reminds me of like Egyptian a little bit.
I wonder if that's a reference to something. Everything in this game is a reference to something. Look at it. They brought up a Xenosaga wiki as the first result, so maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a Xenogears thing. I'm not seeing anything here aside from Xenogears results, so maybe it's not. Maybe it's just an original word that they made up for this game.
Okay.
If you know, let me know.
Yeah, what is Etrenak?
Is that a thing outside of Xenogears? Google didn't seem to think so. Okay, so Citan says, I came much later than Sigurd did, but I also escaped in the same way. And Bart says, what are lambs? That's like the first of a list of questions you can ask.
Yeah, there's like 4.
Yeah.
And you pick.
So Sigurd says, that is the word Solarians use to indicate those who dwell on the earth. As I said before, such surface dwellers or earth dwellers are used for manual labor there. Manual labor could be anything from soldiers to administrative jobs. Solaris gathers its workforce from the land dwellers. Jobs are divided up by who is most suitable. Sometimes people are brainwashed. So they take people from the surface and they use them for manual labor and for testing and things like that, and they brainwash them. So Bart's like, brainwashed, and Sigurd says, when you, young master, were still an infant, I was used as a test subject. There was probably something they valued inside me. This could be something that you might brush over, but just remember back to the conversation you had with Citan about being able to sense something about Miang.
Oh, yes. Oh, right.
So he has this extrasensory perception thing, Sigurd does. They recognized that in him, and they tested him specifically to try to learn what this power is that Sigurd seems to have.
So Sigurd has some special power.
Yeah. We will talk about that later. Okay, so they thought there was something valuable inside of me, Sigurd says. Then Faye says, you too, Doc? And Science says, no, I was born in the lower city levels. It's not a complete secret, but I guess I am a Solarian. Not a complete secret.
I guess he's like, if you read between the lines, you would have known. I sort of told you.
It depends on your, what does Obi-Wan Kenobi say?
Point of view. From your point of, from a certain
point of view. From a certain point of view,
I'm
a
what
Solarian.
I told you is true. From a certain, it's like you, liar. If a spouse ever says, well, from a certain point of view, I was actually telling the truth, it's like, hey, that's code for I lied to you.
Yep. Deceptive. Society says, you see, you still need people to run a country. No matter how scientifically advanced you are, you have no support without people. Good line. I really like that line.
I think so too.
Sigurd says, pure Solarians are rare. They would not even make up a quarter of Ave's population. So they support their country by stealing surface dwellers. Bart says, who is that man? Referring to Ramsus. Sigurd says his name is Karan Ramsus. As you know, he's a Gebler commander. Bart says, Ramsus? Izuchi.
Of course he does.
Just let him keep explaining. Sigurd says, we call him Kar. In Solaris, there is an officer training school called Jugend. He became the commander after leaving there. And Citan says, he's a low-level citizen, the same as me. However, with his amazing abilities, after graduation, he rose through the ranks with unparalleled speed. And Sigurd says, that man had one ideal, to achieve a consolidation of all of his colleagues, even land dwellers, if they had talent. Even land dwellers, if they had talent, were brought into the army. And Bart says, so you two were picked by Ramsus? And Citan says, no, we were not picked by him. We aligned ourselves with him. And Sigurd says, at the time, we agreed with him. Citan says, at that time, Ramsus was our hope. He had high ideals and wanted to change the system in Solaris, to use test subjects and lower-level citizens. To us. This is wrong. This guy does this a lot. He has a lot of typos here on the game facts.
Okay.
So to us, test subjects and lower-level citizens, he was truly all we wished for. And Bart said, a benefactor? And Sigurd said, yes, even I, a test subject, was changed by his ideals. Bart says, so why was it that you wanted to flee from Solaris? Well, actually, let's talk about something before that. So Ramsus wanted to change the system in Solaris. He was a low-born, low-ranking.
And he climbed the ranks.
And
he was like, hey, we should let more low people into the system, right?
Consolidation of his colleagues, he calls it. But obviously he wanted to help at least the people he's working with.
They thought he wanted to
people
help
like Citan and himself who were lower ranking or lower in the class structure, to give them a chance to advance to a higher place or what have you. So at first glance, it seemed to be like a good change for the society, and Citan and Sigurd were on board with it. But as they learned later, it's not entirely the case. Citan mentions here in a little bit, like, it didn't really change anything other than, like...
Now we were a part of the bad system.
Yeah,
right?
It's just like... More or less, it's just like... Before it was like class indicated, like where you were in the system, and Ramsus really just wanted to change that to the most skilled people get to be at the top.
Okay,
but the people at the bottom are still in terrible
Yes, it didn't actually do anything
conditions.
To help. Sure.
It's just like it should be a meritocracy.
A meritocracy
where
instead of
the people
an oligarchy.
The people who are the most skilled get all the benefits, and the people who are not skilled get screwed over.
Yes. Yeah.
So it just flips it, but it's the same system. It just changes who's at the top.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Bart asks why it was that they wanted to flee from Solaris. Sigurd says, we were placed in key military positions by Ramsus, and thanks to that we came to know the relationship between Solaris and the surface dwellers. And Bart says, the lambs, right? And Sigurd says, they weren't just using us lambs for slave labor. They also selected some of us, like me, to be used as subjects in experiments to refine their drugs. Drugs that change people's personalities, to make them more aggressive, and to draw out their latent abilities. They were using us human guinea pigs to test their psychological alteration drugs. Now, this is drive that we learned about a little earlier.
Yeah, and it was,
that Citan called out when they were fighting the Gears in the pirate hideout. He's like, so why can't I hurt these guys? Oh, they're using...
Could it be?
They're using
drive, yeah.
So that drug, drive, is something that Gebler forces use.
And it was developed by testing it on lower people. And as we see throughout this playthrough, it can have some bad effects on people. It doesn't work for everybody the same way.
So Bart says, human guinea pigs experimenting on humans? Sigurd said, yes. For example, drive, that drug, and all others like it that are used now are byproducts of human experimentation. Citan says, however, the role of such experimental subjects was not limited to just that. Faye says this drive drug is something that anyone in Solaris the Solaris army can use. Obviously, he's concerned about Elly. That's why he's asking.
Yes.
Citan says, at least anyone in the Gebler forces who is sent to the surface. And Bart says, you're worried about her, huh? To Faye. Faye's like, huh? What? And Bart's like, I saw some in her room. You mentioned this last episode.
Yep.
Faye says, no. Oh no, Elly's using drive. That makes me so conflicted inside.
Yep.
So Bart, like you said, had noticed that Elly had drive in her little quarters back in Ave. So Bart says, anyway, using slaves as guinea pigs, how low are these guys? Damn. I think I get most of it, old Mason. Sorry, I'm reading too fast. I need to slow down. I think I get most of it. Old Mason, go reserve the town hall for us. We'll finish talking there. I'm going outside to get some air. So Bart leaves. And Sigurd's concerned, I wish I had told him sooner. And Citan's like, don't worry about it. He'll get it. You just give him some time. And then Faye and Citan go out and talk to Bart. And Citan tries to help him come to terms with why Sigurd did what he did, right? Because Bart feels betrayed to some degree. And he says, I had no idea that Sig had such a past. And Citan says, are you still suspicious of Sigurd? And Bart says, well, I mean, it was just so sudden. I kind of expected to hear something different, like they were childhood rivals or something. He's talking about Sigurd and Ramsus. He was hoping that their past had been as kids they had been rivals at one point or something. Yeah. But this is way deeper than that.
It's a whole different thing.
Way more than I expected.
Yeah.
And there's nothing compared to the story he just told us, is it? Citan says, so hearing the story has confused you because it was not so simple. There was a time when we were cooperating with one of Gebler's generals. Furthermore, behind Gebler was a country that you had never even heard of. And Bart feels like he's being condescending. He's like, hey, why are you picking on me for?
Yeah.
You might know everything in the world, but not the rest of us do. What's the problem? And Citan clarifies, no, I'm not picking on you or blaming you or anything. What I'm saying is, if you think about how he feels, then you should see why he could not talk about this with you till now. Looking at
this is interesting. The fact, because when we listed the yin and yang, right? The yin masculine, the yang feminine, and within the yang having at the very bottom of one of the what would you say? One of the qualities of the feminine side, it lists emotional intelligence, right? Now, for Bart to be shutting off to how other people are, but for Citan to be saying if you think about how he feels, then you should see why he couldn't talk about this with you. This is another way where Citan, being a more rounded person just in general, is kind of showing or pointing out how Bart is really lacking in a certain column of qualities.
Bart is repressing his anima.
Yes,
we kind of talked about this before, where he rejected the Nissan symbol.
Yes,
he's like, that's stupid. Dumb. I want to fly on my own. I don't want someone to help me.
And now Citan is pointing out that he lacks some of the qualities that would do him very well would he develop them, but he kind of doesn't want to.
He hasn't developed his feminine inner opposite.
Exactly.
And Citan has.
Citan seems as though he has.
Citan has reached Sophia and has developed wisdom.
He is very wise. Boy, as Bart, he's working on it.
All right, good stuff.
Then I was looking at the activities. I think was the next part.
Then you should see why he could not talk about this with you till now. Looking at the activities of Solaris toward other countries up until now, it has never gone beyond simply maintaining their own empire or self-preservation. And as you have seen, their military power is immense. So Sigurd was probably thinking ahead. First, he was probably concentrating on taking care of the problems here on the continent of Ignis. Once these things were settled here, it would give him a stronger foundation to deal with Solaris later, which is a much better plan than rushing straight into a war he knew he could not win. Quite logical, really. So, essentially, if Sigurd was like, okay, Bart, we need to go, take out Solaris, they have no chance of fighting Solaris.
How do they even get to Solaris?
Right.
They stand no chance.
They need to rally the support of all the lambs, essentially.
Which includes reinstating the Lost Prince, and it includes bringing the
stopping the war,
resolving
the war of Kislev and Ave, uniting the lambs of Ignis to uprise against Solaris. That's what Sigurd is thinking.
And
so for the time being, it's like, I can't even think about Solaris. I got to figure out how we can put Bart back on the throne and stop Shakhan, and then from there settle the war with Kislev, and then from there make some kind of alliance with Kislev and
Yes.
Nisan and everybody. And then from there, we can think about pulling our resources and the gears and things that we're like, excavating.
Yes.
And then we can think about
using
attacking
them
Solaris.
to actually help each other instead of destroy each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Bart says, sounds like you understand one another pretty well. And Citan says, well, it's not like we're newly acquainted, is it? Sorry that I read Citan's lines with contractions. It just makes it way easier. And we talked about a lot of things up until we decided to escape from Solaris. Bart says, speaking of that, why did you leave? That Ramsus guy was supposed to be a star of hope or something, wasn't he? Citan says, yes, I certainly thought so at first, but then I realized his way of thinking was not that much of a change from the previous system, is what we were just talking about. Basically, the only difference was whether they stressed people's rank and class or their skill. The words had changed, but it was still no different from the Solaris itself, or from what Solaris itself had been doing up until then. He had no intentions of bringing everyone a better way of life. So again, it's not about improving the lives of everyone in society, only those who are skilled, only
Yes.
those who merit being at
Like
the
a
top.
social Darwinism kind of thing, survival of the fittest.
Exactly. So Bart says, in other words, he's an elitist. I don't think I like him much either. So, Citan, do you think I can beat Gebler? And Citan says, why? Are you planning on fighting them? Bart says, as long as they're working with Shakhan, there's no way around it. The way things are going, I'm sure we'll have to fight them sooner or later. So Citan says, I suppose so, but even if we were able to defeat the Gebler forces here, there's still Solaris to deal with. If we're not careful, it's possible that we may get involved in a larger war with Shakhan. Do you not agree that continuing the way we have been going is rather hard on everyone? I think it's time we try to get help from a greater number of people. So he's essentially referring to the fact that we can't fight Gebler or Shakhan in the way that we have been doing, just as your group of pirates.
In your little sand ship.
It's time to put you back on the throne.
Right.
It's time to get established
Yeah.
and actually unite people, right? So Bart says, so defeating Shakhan's not going to get rid of the likes of Gebler. I know what you're trying to say. To vanquish Gebler, first gain thy throne, right? Citan says, you could put it that way. So anyways, I don't want to just continue reading every single line of dialogue here, but all of that is really important to examine. We have a clearer insight now into what Citan and Sigurd are trying to do.
Yes.
And Bart's role in that.
Yeah.
And the importance of sort of settling what's going on here in Ignis. Ignis's war needs to end. We need to get people rallied together, and we need to work together to fight off Solaris and
Right,
stop them.
because they're
from
the
what they're
real
doing.
reason why everything sucks. for
Solaris is
everyone
the
on
real
surface.
problem here.
Yeah.
They are actually manipulating this war. They're using the factions and the nations against each other.
Because this reminds me, did you ever see the movie Elysium?
Yes.
Yes. How there's the humans up above,
Yes,
and then
in the space station. Yeah.
and they get all the preferential everything.
Very similar
Were that
concept.
to ever happen, that's how the result would end up going. It would be the power. You even see it in today's world with the big powers funding smaller little proxy groups to kind of keep things destabilized in certain places so that they can't ever threaten the power of the big power. You
Right.
know?
As long
you gotta
as
preserve your power.
the situation below is volatile enough to where they keep fighting, squabbling amongst
then
themselves, the
they'll never-
resources are not pooled, they
Yes.
can never threaten us.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
So it's divide and conquer. So they're up there just kind of playing chess with everybody's lives.
And they were kind of talking about, without people, a country can't. What does he say exactly?
Well,
a country,
even a technologically advanced country can't function without its people. Yeah.
people.
Without the approval, without the
and they need lambs for the manual labor.
And then they brainwash them, and then they put them
But
to work.
in order to maintain
Yeah.
the structure, the power structure they have that allows them to do this, to maintain their society, they have to keep lambs not united against them.
Yeah,
Make sense?
it does. However, there's one thing that does not make sense.
Okay.
Given this, if this is their true purpose, why does Ramsus listen
to Citan?
Citan?
Good question, Kaysen.
That does make me wonder. We may not actually know the whole picture here. We may understand Sigurd's point of view, But to the extent that Citan is involved in all of this, I don't know that we understand him still.
Completely.
I still don't think we understand Citan.
He has, at least we know to some degree, the ear of the Emperor, or he is following the commands, or what's the word I'm looking for? He's following the orders of the Emperor.
Yeah. And he's giving orders.
He's really concerned about the time of the gospel.
To Ramsus, yes.
Citan is very involved with the resurrection of God and the time of the gospel.
Yeah.
That seems to be more at the center of his motivation at this point. Because that we got from his inner monologue.
Yes.
Whereas everything he's
never
saying
revealed
to
it
these
to
people,
anyone.
he doesn't reveal anything about that.
Right.
He never tells people about the time of the gospel, the resurrection of God. He only thought that to himself.
Yes.
So that's how we know that's truly what he's after.
Whereas
all this stuff is a path to whatever that is all about.
And we'll see if what he's all about is good or bad. But yeah, very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff.
Good things. Good things. Okay. So in the next scene, they meet in the town hall. And I'm not going to read all the dialogue. I'll just try to kind of summarize this. They're making a plan for how they're going to put Bart on the throne and overthrow Shakhan.
Yeah. By the way, I thought we were going to get a real-time strategy type kind of system here, because you go into the map, you see the blocks, and you see the enemy's forces. And I thought, kind of like Final Fantasy VII, when there was the invasion of the up in the mountain at the
Fort Condor.
Yeah, and we have to kind of place our troops and determine how we're going to
Here is
defeat the
a
enemy.
major gripe that I have. I've been playing JRPGs since I was 10 years old or something like that.
Sure.
There have been very few games who have attempted what you're saying. Suikoden 2, and I guess you could classify Fort Condor in...
yeah, but that one didn't quite come up to the real RTS style kind of thing.
How is it possible that we have Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics on one side, maybe on the other side you have Fire Emblem.
Project Triangle Strategy. It's coming. It's new. It's still.
What's that Sega Genesis tactical game? Shining Force.
Oh, I don't know that I've
So you have like Shining Force, and you have like Fire Emblem, and you have Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics.
And Mario Rabbids.
Triangle Strategy, that's sort of a branch off of that type.
It's on its way.
But you can't, I have not seen anyone combine that with the traditional turn-based RPG in a way where it was like, that was super satisfying. Because the battles of Suikoden 2, its tactical element is not very good.
Oh, really?
Like, it kind of is mirrored on the structure of Fire Emblem or something like that. But it's just not good. So I suspect it's because there's so much time that goes into all of the mechanics of a tactical RPG being like a full cycle of development. But then you also have to do
it's like a whole separate engine, a game engine.
A full cycle of development on all the mechanics of a turn-based RPG as well.
Yes.
And that you're making 2 games instead of 1 game.
Okay.
But come on, indie people out there.
I know, we have the technology now.
Someone make a wartime tactics, maybe like a Yasumi Matsuno-styled factions and nations at wartime story that has turn-based exploring the world and going to towns and NPCs and side questing and that sort of part, but also the tactical battle parts. I want that game desperately. Someone please make it.
And I want it now. So this is how it should go. I think we're thinking of the coolest game ever, and I don't care that we say this out loud because I will never make this game. So hopefully one of you guys does, because this would be so cool. Have it be action when you're one-on-one. Have it so you're in battles and you're just doing the one-on-one stuff when you're just controlling yourself. Then there are moments where you need a whole party and it's RPG style. Then there are grander moments when you're controlling a whole army and it's tactical style. It's
ambition
RTS.
of this.
Yes.
Because now you're talking about almost like Valkyrie Chronicles.
I never
which
played
is
that one.
Similar maybe to like Battalion Wars.
Yes, I did play Battalion Wars.
Where you got you can control the little each individual guy.
But I'm not saying,
around.
and that's cool. That game was so cool. But I'm saying that there are different segments of the game, right? So let's say there's an infiltration thing. So you're just one dude and it's Metal Gear Solid style and you go in and take people out, right? But then, sorry. So sometimes I'm like 5 minutes into an idea and I realize we're doing a podcast about Xenogears. Anyways, then sometimes you run a situation where your friends are with you and now you're not just fighting and now it's RPG style, and then the whole army's here and you've got to fight with armies. I'm just saying it's separate. It's not like you're always in armies and you're controlling one dude. I'm saying there's a moment where sometimes you're one guy, sometimes you're a party, sometimes you're tactical, and it shifts depending on the story that the game wants to tell.
Yeah.
So that would be a cool game, and somebody please make it because I want to play it.
I agree. Yeah. Somebody make a game that combines tactical RPG with traditional RPG.
But I'm saying you can even go to also the action thing,
action
or
RPG
some stealth or something
maybe
like
a little
that.
action RPG.
But the funny thing with this, so the way the game works with Xenogears, the way these RPG games work, let's hear it.
You haven't played Ghost of Tsushima yet.
I have not yet, no.
But in Suikoden, they have these kind of rock, paper, scissors duels.
Yes.
So you have your traditional turn-based battle. This is a Xenogears podcast, I promise, but we just got to get through this idea. It's a tangent, but it's a good tangent. I like it.
Oh, it's too good.
You have your, 6-party normal type turn-based battles. Then you have your war battles that are larger scale. Then you have duels between like a commander and like your main character. But that's played out like it's played out like a rock paper scissors thing.
Ah.
It's like you choose heavy attack and they choose defend, or they choose attack.
Or mobile.
It's like this
attack,
beats this,
like
this beats this, this beats this.
Sure.
It's a
or ranged
Rochambeau
attack,
thing.
something like that. Yeah.
Now, replace that with the Ghosts of Tsushima duels.
Yeah, I've watched some gameplay on it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I would say, okay, Ghost of Tsushima is awesome. We're going to cover it on this podcast at some point. But I'm just telling you, the first time I did a duel with a Ronin was possibly the coolest moment of the whole game. It is. They capture that.
That's cool.
Dueling, like romanticized samurai dueling thing.
Yeah. Instead of the constant swordplay, it's like the more strategic one. You got to get that one move in.
It's perfect.
That's cool.
It's perfect. Perfect.
What? That's perfect. Perfect.
I'm telling you, it's perfect. It's so sweet.
I think we've developed a very, very successful game here.
Action
and I hope
RPG.
Somebody who can make games is listening.
Action RPG duels with the commanders.
Yes, yes.
Tactical RPG, Fire Emblem style, large scale battles or something. Mm-hmm. It's specifically in Fire Emblem Three Houses. Like, typically you have like 12 or 14 units. Yeah. But in Fire Emblem Three Houses, when units attack, they zoom in, and that unit is actually like a brigade. So it's like many units within one unit.
That makes sense.
It makes it more like you have an army of hundreds of thousands or something.
As opposed to just a health bar in one person.
An army of 12 guys against an army of like 30 guys in one battle.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, also your traditional RPG questing.
Yes, with the party, exploration,
and controlling the party with a turn-based battle system, because I want control of all the guys.
Exactly.
Maybe you could do a Final Fantasy VII Remake style switching characters
Let's
thing.
not get carried away.
But let's not do that. Let's just do turn-based.
Just do turn-based.
Turn-based, tactical, action RPG duels with the commanders would be the sickest game ever.
Oh my gosh.
Please, somebody make that.
Oh my gosh.
Please. Okay. The plan, though, back to Xenogears.
They didn't do that. You're just looking at a map.
The plan here is, we can't fight Gebler.
No.
We need to distract Gebler. We need the Gebler forces to move away from the capital. So we need to. So essentially, along the Ave and Kislev border, there's kind of two places, because there's a mountain range that sort of divides.
Yeah, it's a natural border.
Yeah, it's like a natural border. So there's kind of two places where they have, a force set up to sort of watch or guard places where they could get in.
Yeah.
Around these mountains, around this natural barrier.
Yeah, kind of like in a valley kind of between the mountains.
The main force is more to kind of like the northeast border. And then the second largest force is in the city itself in Vladivik.
To defend the actual capital.
And then they have a really small force, more of just like a lookout, more just like just to keep an eye on this little area.
On Nissan to see what they're doing.
Yeah, in kind of near Nissan, and but there's a border there with Ave in the west, in Kislev and Ave in the west of the Ignis continent there, the northwest side. So the plan here is, okay, we're going to attack that small force. And that's going to call out the force that's in the capital to come in and give aid up here.
And so they'll have to deplete their forces. Because I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to make it seem like Nisan and Kislev have teamed up.
Yes.
And they have some, I think they have some Kislev gears. Is that what they're saying?
Gears and like army uniforms.
Okay,
and
that's
things.
it. Some military stuff.
They're going to make it look like
They're going to make it
Kislev-
look like, so that way Ave has to like, oh, they got to take it seriously. They got to empty like a good chunk of their military
to go
away from the city.
Stop this, because it's going to look like an invasion force from Nisan and Kislev together coming through that point.
Yeah. Now, this brings up the ethical question of should we really make them think that Nisan is attacking them? What if they counterattack and destroy Nisan? Right. What if this doesn't work and Nisan's like, we didn't do it. It was these rogue people who did it on their own. We didn't do this.
Isn't it Citan who says something like...
He's like, it won't fail.
Well, no. So the other part of the plan, I'll get to what he says here in a second, but the other part of the plan is they don't want some of the force from the northern border over here to also come and aid, because that could be disastrous.
Right.
If too many soldiers.
Then they all just die and it's over. Yeah.
So it's like we're going to send a smaller force to like essentially fight and distract that force in the north so that they don't rush over here. So we have time to fight here, and then we have time to get into Ave as it's depleted and kill Shakhan and put Bart on the throne. And so that's the plan. The plan is pull the forces from the capital with a feint, this idea that Nisan and Kislev have united to invade here at this point where we're weak.
The weak point.
Pull our soldiers there. We don't want reinforcements from this side coming over. So Faye, you go there with a group of gears and just fight them and distract them so that they don't come over here.
Like in the
they
mountains.
think they're getting attacked at that point. And that'll give us time to finish this up and put Bart on the throne. That's the plan, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to send Faye there, over to that side. And then, what does Citan say? Because they're talking about Vanderkam, who is he was the guy who got demoted. Like Ramsus yelled at him, remember?
Yes, Vanderkam was in charge of the special unit, right?
He's the one that is now sent to that northern border that Faye's going to attack.
Yes.
And he's like, don't worry about that guy. He's way too dependent on his like naval guns. Basically,
yes, he doesn't keep up with the times. He thinks a big gun is better than some better strategy, or I think he doesn't really use. What does he not use?
He doesn't like the gears or something.
Yeah, it was something about the gears. He has used them though. He infiltrated the
what does he say?
Pirates' hideout with them.
Young one, he's not able to adapt to change in tactics, particularly following the introduction of gears.
Yeah,
he's a man
so
who
he
will never
doesn't
stray away from his dependence on naval guns, large naval guns.
Yeah, so he prefers. So if he has the guns, he'll favor them over gears. But gears are more maneuverable and possibly just as powerful.
So that's why Faye. They think that Faye, even with a small force, will have success because in their gears they'll be able to outmaneuver. His like sand ships.
And they'll be able to go in the mountains and fight from the mountains, which is hard. You can't get big guns into like mountainous areas.
Oh, here it is. Bart says, you're saying that you intend to use Nisan as bait? And Faye's like, Doc? Sigurd says, Shakhan is very sensitive to Nisan and Kislev's actions. If Nisan starts moving, he will probably leave it to Gebler. But, and then Citan says, of course, I do not wish to do that from the beginning, but looking at the situation, we have to be willing to go that far. So yes, the concern is that this would be compromising to Nisan, but based on where we're at right now, based on the situation, like this is what we have to do.
Risk that. So that's heavy, but it doesn't seem like nobody really pushes back after he says that.
Because he's right.
Exactly. It's like
these are the type of risks you have to take in war.
Yes, and that's why it tends to be certain types of people that rise to the top in war because they're willing to do that.
They're willing to risk everything.
They're willing to risk it, themselves and others.
And that's what your enemy does not suspect you'd be willing to risk, and that's why you're able to deceive them. That's why you're supposed to know your enemy. It's the whole Sun Tzu thing.
Yes.
It's like, if you don't know how they think, then they're going to surprise you. They're going to find they're going to find some way to get into those chinks in your mind's armor, so to speak, the strategic armor.
Yeah.
And so you got to be willing to risk everything, because hopefully they won't suspect that you would do that. So,
and that's where you have to have the belief in your cause. Like you have to be so into what you're doing, that because you're going pretty far. You got to believe that it's worth it.
Right. So that's the plan. Now, as they're leaving, some interesting dialogue here with Sister Agnes and Marguerite. I'm interested to see what you think about this.
Yeah.
Marguerite and Bartholomew, seeing you two brings my hopes up. Long ago, before the Fatimas of Ave were called Fatima, the royal brothers and their wives oversaw many prosperous reigns or eras. I'm looking forward to the day when, as the great mother of the Nisan sect, you will take your place on the throne as Bartholomew's wife.
Yeah.
They are first cousins.
They are very closely related.
Now, in some cultures, incest between royal family members was pretty normal, in particular like ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
I know that in certain European countries this happened, but it was not necessarily, I mean, especially when the church was dominating, it was like that was not a good thing or considered a good thing.
Yeah. And the royalty would all marry each other, and those situations would often happen within the English royal family.
Yes,
actually, there are several instances of things like that happening.
Well, they made their own church, so
right. That's true. That's true.
Because of the fact that
he wanted to divorce someone.
King Henry VIII wanted to divorce him.
Catherine of Aragon, I think.
You're not supposed to do that in Catholicism.
You're not supposed to do that. So he founded his
But
own
anyways,
religion.
I was surprised that this mention of ancestral relations being a part of like the Fatima dynasty is kind of just used as a throwaway har line here to embarrass Margie a little bit.
Yeah.
And that there's no attempt made to justify that for 10-year-olds playing a game in 1998.
Yeah, that's true. They don't even mention it. Yeah, that's kind of funny. It's also funny, too, because she was in the cathedral. She's like, oh, I'd like to get married one day kind of thing, or I'd like to be the second half of somebody to reach our divine potential. And then Bart is like, that's stupid. And then when it's brought up that maybe she'd have to marry Bart, she's like, oh, that's a horrible idea. But then Agnes says, oh, I don't know, in a few years, if things keep going how they're going, Bart's going to have a pretty good interest in you, right? Like, you're growing up, you know, he's not going to be able to resist. And it's like the tables are going to flip. She's not going to want him, but he will want her. But she wants to get married, but not to him. It's a funny, funny little situation they have.
I thought it was weird and probably not necessary.
Probably. I mean, I don't know how far into the future this game goes, but...
To make it an ancestral relationship, I don't know. It's just, it struck me as funny that they just kind of throw that in there as an almost throwaway comedic line.
That's kind of funny.
But anyways, another line that I found funny here is the group that Faye's going to go with. They're kind of, bantering with him a little bit or trying to.
Yeah.
And he says, "Don't call me son, because you sure ain't my pops."
But you know what's really funny? And okay, I looked this line up because it stood out to me too. So the Japanese does not say this at all. It is completely different. However, that's not that bad of a translation given the situation.
Okay.
It's a pun. It's a play on words that was done in the Japanese that does not work in English. It wouldn't make sense. I don't know how else he could have done this. But so what he says in English, don't call me son because you sure ain't my pops. In the Japanese, he says, don't call me Bozu. So the guy says Bozu. Now, Bozu has two meanings in Japanese.
Okay.
So one of them is like a boy or a kid or a son or something like that, right? So that's Bozu. It also means a Buddhist priest. It means both of those things.
Okay.
And so then Faye's response is, don't call me Bozu. And what he says here is really funny. He says, don't call me Bozu because I won't be reciting any scriptures for you when you die, old man. Right?
Okay.
So they call him son, and he throws back, don't call me Bozu, the word, because I'm not a priest, and I'm not righteous.
He's playing on the word Bozu.
He's playing on the word
They're
Bozu.
calling him a boy. He's turning that around on the other
priest.
meaning
Yes, the other meaning, but being kind of rude and in jest. However, the thing that solidifies this as that it was meant to be the pun. It wasn't meant to be the what solidified it for me was the response, which was from one of the other soldier people. I don't think he's named. He goes, "Huh? Ha 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 ha," right? Meaning he questioned at first. He's like, "What? Oh, ha ha, I get it." Right? Dot kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that funny, and Faye was just kind of being weird. But it solidifies it as this was a joke that Faye just told. And
He was
so
trying to make
back,
a joke and it wasn't that funny.
He was trying to make a joke. It wasn't very funny. Everyone didn't get it, and then they gave him a courtesy laugh afterwards. It seemed, because it's the ha, comma, and it just didn't seem like a legitimate laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell, but
Sure.
So that was a play on words. Very, very interesting. But the way, I don't know how you translate that in English, so I actually think he did a pretty good job.
That's tough.
Turning it into, don't call me son, because you sure ain't my pops. It wasn't a father son. It was like kid, and the word is ossan for old man is ossan, which could just be anybody, but it also kind of means uncle. So it's not really reference to a dad. It's more like just an old person or an uncle. Anyways, there you go. That's the Japanese.
Yeah,
that was my big
in
note here.
English, I mean that with that context, that's a tough thing to translate.
I don't know how I would translate that.
How would you translate that? That's tough.
Yeah,
but
you could turn it around and just try to find an English pun that worked, but that's going to be hard. Like it'll be hard for you to find something.
You'd have to
like
research for a while, think about it really hard. He's under the constraints of time. It's like I just got to.
Like sun pops, like that. It does work. I'm knocking this translation. I think it's fine.
The reason why I don't like it, and this is purely just from, the English dialogue perspective, it just doesn't sound like something Faye would say. Like it doesn't sound like his voice, like the words.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk like this.
I think that's true.
And it just felt very strange. As he's not.
I think that's true in the Japanese as well, though.
Yeah.
The way he takes it. It was more of a joke, though. This one wasn't much of a joke. The jokey nature, the jovial nature, didn't come through in the English as well.
Yeah,
so that's probably. I think you're right there.
It just sounds kind of rude and like.
Yeah, it's not like he's telling a joke,
and
even a bad joke.
Using like the word "ain't" just doesn't sound like something has ever been in his vocabulary to this point.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like something genuinely Faye would say. It's like Faye, especially at this point. I think rather than like firing back at somebody like that would, I don't know, just kind of be like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like not really like play along too much or banter back, right?
Yeah.
But not necessarily get upset.
It seemed like he was
back.
Genuinely upset in the English. That is.
And upset at something that's like not really that.
It wasn't.
It wasn't rude.
And even in English, the response is, huh? Ha ha ha.
Yeah, it's like.
And so it's like, what is that? What is that? What happened? What
weird.
Happened between these two characters just now?
Now, I know that there probably are going to be some people in the comments who are going to. Okay, without spoilers, right? They're going to comment on the fact that Faye's personality is kind of weird and socially awkward, and that's.
I get that a little. Yeah.
That there's
kind of a little
an
more
element to him where
introverted.
he's not able to really. Adapt socially very well.
Okay.
Because he's, for all intents and purposes, given his retrograde amnesia, only got like 3 years of really social experience
so his personality
in a backwater
well
village of Lahan.
You know what's weird though? In that village, everyone really seemed to like him a lot and look up to him. So I think he did have some social skills that people liked about him. But I've definitely seen since we've left Lahan that but it's more because of his internal conflict that he just doesn't. It's like he doesn't have time to deal with people anymore. He's just like, you got everyone around me is kind of annoying. I'm only here because I have to be.
I feel like that justification it falls a little bit on the apologetics side to me. It's like finding a justification instead of like. He seems perfectly well adjusted around people in social situations everywhere else up until now.
Yes. Yeah. I mean that's true.
It could be a valid explanation, but elsewhere he doesn't seem to have the same problem.
Right, it's kind of whenever the writers want to reinsert the problem, they kind of just put it in.
It's just a weird line.
It's not there.
It's a weird line. Doesn't sound like him to me.
It sure is.
So then, here's a...
Which is worse, though, that or Sorry Dari?
Sorry Dari is pretty weird.
Sorry Dari is horrible. I'm sorry, Honeywood. No forgiveness there.
Here's some great stuff. We go up to the top deck. You actually get in control of Citan for a while. So they send Faye off to get into position.
Yeah, I thought that was fun that we were controlling him.
So you control Citan here.
Oh, by the way, there is one other thing though. Before we get sent off, we say something. Faye says something interesting about the Veltal because they're saying, "Hey, we're going to be here doing this attack, and you guys are going to sneak in over here with Bart." Faye goes, "Yeah, let me guess. You want me to go and cause a ruckus with Weltal, huh?" And they're like, "You got it." And he's down with it. He's like, "Sure, I'll get him Veltal and just
he's
go."
accepted it at this
and he
point.
even says, I wish I had the exact quote. He says, I'm gonna go cause trouble, right? I'm gonna go ruffle up some feathers, right?
Yeah.
And it's like he knows he's using this atomic bomb of a weapon to go, rough up people, which he typically is opposed to doing in a difficult situation, and he's just okay with it now.
Yeah, he's come to accept it, and that was all part of. Well, as long as I'm helping people, I'll find my purpose.
Exactly. Since he's decided to let Bart kind of lead, and he's just going to follow Bart, and whatever he's doing, I'll find my purpose there. It's like a big weight's been lifted off of his shoulders, and he no longer has to determine his direction. He's just going to follow until his direction's revealed to him.
Yeah.
And this is it. Okay, now he can actually deal with this kind of stuff in a much more efficient way.
It takes some of the burden of the responsibility off of him a little bit, because it's like, I don't have to wrestle with every time he was being asked to get in the gear, he was thinking about, what am I going to do in this thing?
Yeah.
And now it's like you're saying, I'm going to follow Bart and Doc, and my purpose will be revealed to me. But they're the ones telling me to get in it. They're the ones sending me on the mission. They're the ones making the decision.
He's relinquished control of his life at that point.
I'm not making the decision. I'm kind of just letting them decide when I use this thing and
so
not.
if things go wrong, it's their fault, right? Because they're the ones.
That's how I kind of feel.
I think that's
how
something.
He's able to accept, okay, I'm going to get in.
Psychologically, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't his decision. I also think this is as good a time as any to bring up the word Veltal and what it means technically, because I looked that up. Velt. It
Cosmos,
means world,
universe.
And then all means universe or space, And so Veltal is well, I think it's just translated as outer space, universe kind of thing.
The universe.
But Welt specifically means it's where the word world comes from. You say world in a German accent, you say Welt. The Welt is going to end. Well, that means world, and then all is probably where the word all comes from actually, but it's just a universal kind of space, that whole thing.
Yep.
So Veltal, the universe.
Gear. Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Okay, so you take over as Citan, and he goes into the gun room. You can talk to Mason there. They have a nice little moment between them, back and forth. Mason sort of sharing some of his concerns about how he raised Bart and not feeling like he was an adequate minder. And, Citan sort of reassuring him, that's not right at all. I think he's a fine man, you did a good job, that kind of thing. And Mason's, so thankful to him. Oh, my good Dr. Azuki. I hope you're not too taken aback. They're having this kind of conversation.
Mason's great.
Citan, like we were saying, the emotional intelligence, I think, you really see that here.
He can read people, he can read the room. Yeah, everyone seems to look up to him.
Because it's even just the way he speaks to him, right?
Yeah.
This isn't like Citan's typical way of speaking. He's speaking almost in the way that he knows Mason will receive.
Yes.
So he says to Mason, "Oh, dear Lord Mason, I hardly think that is right." He's like,
That's great.
He's speaking specifically to his kind of background and the type of life that he lived as what's the word, in the court of the king, a lord, but a servant to kings.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So referring to him as dear Lord Mason is he's trying to help him. Yeah. Deal with these concerns and these conflicts and worrying that he hadn't done a good enough job raising Bart on the night that he's about to go and try to take the throne back, right? So it's really interesting that Citan is able to just, no matter who he's talking to, He knows how to talk to them.
Yes. Yeah.
How to get information from people. How
Yes.
to like navigate the conversation to get them
Right.
to accept the role he wants them to accept.
You know,
Citan's like a master at like, if we want to call it psychological manipulation, but
well, this is
whether the good or bad type of manipulation, whether he wants to use
Positive
somebody
or
whether he wants to just get somebody to have confidence in themselves and to, you know, resolve the conflicts in their heart in that moment. Citan is a master at speaking to people and getting them to the place that they need to be at.
That's so funny. It almost sounds like, well, how about this idea? So you've got Sigurd that's like, hey, I'm really receptive to feeling and sensing things on a certain level. My intuition is good. I don't know if all the elements have like a different thing that they're really good at. But one thing that that what you're just now telling me just kind of reminds me of is Saruman the White, and how he, just through his speech, he can almost like hypnotize people into just listening to him, and he could manipulate. As again, you know, that word doesn't have to be negative, but he could manipulate. And you look at Gandalf was more the personal understanding of the heart, but Saruman had the gift of the tongue that could just like get people to do things. I almost wonder if there's something like that with a lot of these characters, where they're all gifted in a certain specific domain.
Something to keep an eye on as we learn more about elements going forward. So anyways, he ends up leaving there, and he goes up the ladder to the deck, and Bart and Sigurd are there talking. And I really love, again, the cinematography here is beautiful. But the conversation here is Sigurd saying, why such a glum face? Tomorrow is our first return to the castle in 12 years. But you were just there, like when you saved Margie, right?
Oh, right.
But okay. Bart says, returning to the castle. After we get the royal palace back, I guess I'm going to be the king. I'm not very suited for it, am I? Sigurd, you'll get used to it. Bart, listen, Sig. Sigurd says, yes. Bart says, I guess it really doesn't matter who the king is, does it? As long as it's a symbol of hope, right? It doesn't have to be me.
He's looking for a way out.
A way out. Sigurd says, I was captured by Solaris and brainwashed for use as a human guinea pig. But even they couldn't erase my desire to return home. This is how we get the clue that he was from Ave originally, not from Solaris originally, Sigurd. He says, then I remembered you and Margaret, not as the royalty of our country, but as just normal children. I don't care about rebuilding a dynasty. I want to regain this kingdom because it belongs to you, because it's your home. And Bart says, because it's my home? Aizuchi? Sigurd says, yes, for that, we must take Shakhan down tomorrow. Am I correct? Bart says, right, then let's do it. And Sigurd says, but first, I think you need a bath. A bath?
Yeah, that's
You don't look like a king at all. You're facing the enemy's leader, so you must have a noble appearance. Bart says, hey, you just said it didn't matter whether I'm the king or not. And Sigurd says, that is it. This is this.
Well, that's that. This is this.
Yeah.
I suppose.
And then Citan is listening. And Citan says that someone was waiting for you. That one was all it took for you to regain yourself. You were a great man, Sigurd. And then it looks towards, I love this shot. The camera pans up to the red moon in the sky.
Yes.
And then it pulls back
through the window.
Through the window of where Ramsus and Miang are in bed together.
Oh, this scene is
such a great cinematic transition.
Yeah, beautiful.
So on the same night, over here in Bledavik, we have a nightmare happening where Ramsus is dreaming about this flashback we saw earlier where the red-haired martial art guy is killing Gears barehanded, just taking them out. But it extends further than what we saw before.
Yes.
He gets into this red
gear. And you can imagine that if he's that powerful without a gear, that
inside
he's
of a
way
gear.
more powerful inside of a gear.
And he just starts
he just wreaks havoc.
Messing stuff up. Now, I love the fact that the camera then pans up and you see Graf observing all
Once
of this.
again, on a mountain pillar, like right
the
next to
moon
the action.
Silhouetting him.
Once again, I love it.
But Graf is observing this. And Ramsus is there with some troops.
Yes.
And they're like, he's losing it. He's going crazy. Stop him.
And
do
Ramsus is
whatever it
like,
takes.
stop him, but his troops are all looking around like they don't know like how.
How
do
we
we
going
stop
to stop
this guy? Yeah.
this guy?
Right.
And eventually it ends up with Ramsus alone facing the gear towering above him.
As it kind of like.
Yep. And then you hear a scream, and you hear like a piercing sound effect, almost like a stab or an impalement or something like that is what it invoked to me. Ah! And then he wakes up. And he's really disturbed by this. And Miang kind of stirs like, hey, is everything okay? He's like, whatever. This can't be. Or actually, that's part of the. This is
right.
okay.
He doesn't like say it because I think Miang says.
He says no.
Did you
it was
have
nothing.
a
So
dream
she says,
again?
"What's
Yeah.
wrong? You look like you just had a nightmare.
It wasn't that same
dream again, was it?
Exactly.
Right. Ramsus, no, it was nothing." And he gets up and leaves. Going to take a walk, maybe get some water, wash his face, whatever, shake it off. And then Miang says, "Peeping is not very becoming,
Now, I didn't, and this is on purpose. It seemed like she was talking. You don't know anyone else is in this room.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like she's talking to Ramsus, but it's like, y'all are sleeping
doesn't
in
make
the same
sense,
bed.
right?
That doesn't make sense. And then that voice shows up.
And then Graf appears in the room. Miang says, "I saw that boy that you're after fight in the tournament. I could tell right away he resembles you greatly." I don't know if we mentioned this, but back at the tournament, there was a part where, actually, yeah, we totally missed this. Shakhan gives like a speech at the tournament.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, I did a great job in that speech."
And they're like not listening.
And Ramsus and Miang come in. And another funny line is, Ramsus is like he says something about it's not proper to indulge in such gay revelry or something like that.
That's right. Oh, that was funny.
It could have just been revelry. Didn't need to use the word gay, particularly in like the modern context. That word has changed from what it meant in like the 1950s when Tolkien used it a million times in Lord of the Rings.
A million times.
Right, just meant like,
and even then it was an older word.
Celebratory happiness or whatever.
Yes.
But anyways,
gay frivolity.
A 10-year-old playing Xenogears in 1998 is going to see that word very differently. But,
exactly.
Anyways, there in that scene, Miang noticed Faye. She she took a particular note of Faye.
Yes,
she's like, "Ooh,
I noticed.
that boy is really handsome," or something like that. So that's what she's referring to here. She says, "I saw that boy that you were after fight in the tournament. I could tell right away he resembles you greatly," which is funny because we've not seen Graf's face at all. He's a freaking Darth Vader mask at the moment.
Yes, that's
right?
true.
But she says that Faye resembles Graf greatly. And so Graf says, he basically came here to do one thing, and one thing only. He's getting straight down to business. "You used the influence of the ministry to set you up with that man, Ramsus, right? I don't know what you're up to, but don't you dare think of plotting against me. You stay out of this." And then his fetching disappears.
Well, she says that too. She's like, I'm just watching. I'm just here to observe.
Yeah. So we saw earlier that Citan and Sigurd were really concerned. Particularly Sigurd was really worried about Miang.
About her. They're like, I'm worried that she's here.
She scares me more than Ramsus.
Right.
And now Graf, who for all we know is a very powerful antagonist of this game.
Yeah,
he's like,
ultimate.
"Don't you even think about interfering. I do not want, the fact that you're here pisses me off, and stay out of this."
Now, I can't tell who would have the upper hand in this situation.
Yes.
Right, because it seems you would guess that, okay, Graf is more powerful, right? Just in general, Graf has more authority in this situation. But he is scared of Miang. He wouldn't be there if he wasn't concerned about what she could do or what she means, right?
Yep.
And so he's like, you're here. And so even though Graf is posturing, he's trying to make himself seem powerful, and I'm warning you, but in doing so, the fact that he even is brought to this point, he's revealing that he actually does not have the upper hand here. And Miang, if she wanted to, could potentially ruin his entire plan.
Yep.
And that means that it's hard to tell, but it means that at least in some way, she has the upper hand over him in some way, and she's just biding her time, just not not using it. I don't know what that would be.
This is what I was talking about when I said that the villains in this game are so good.
Yeah,
and they're
well,
all
so far.
and they're all against each other, and they all have their own like individual like character arcs.
Right.
It's like Ramsus and what he wants is different from Graf and what he wants, which is different from Shakhan, which is different from Miang, which is different. It's like the Emperor.
Exactly.
It's like everybody,
the Emperor looks like an antagonist.
Everybody's like against each other.
Yeah.
And they all have different plans.
It's crazy.
It's like who is going to have the upper hand? Who is going to win? It's a lot of mystery.
You know, this actually parallels, a lot of people like to think of, in the real world, like to think that there's the Illuminati that have control over everything.
Yeah.
And this game is kind of showing that if there is the Solarians who are literally controlling everything down below and they're the ones, but they don't agree with each other and they hate each other and they're fighting amongst each other. To the degree that there is any type of Illuminati on Earth in 2021, they hate each other, and it's not what people think, where they're all in agreement and they all do each other's bidding. It's like, no, if that exists to the degree that it does, they are undercutting each other all the time.
Absolutely.
So this kind of situation, it's very realistic to me, I think.
Yeah, it's very convincing. I really like it. So he leaves, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I see this news has reached you already. As usual, you're the first to hear about everything. But don't worry, I won't steal your prized possession. I'll cooperate. Besides, you and I go back a long way. Hints, mysteries, what's going on here? We have to keep playing to find out.
No idea.
Now we get to Franz.
Franz is the best character in the game. This should be called the Franz.
I don't want to spend too much time on this because we are running a little low on time right now.
Yeah.
We still got to get to the
We
scene
still
with
got to get to Elly.
and Faye, which is where we wanted to end. But
We
I
just point out that it's a little strange.
it was funny to me because demi-humans are a thing in this world.
Yeah, we saw, and I think the Retrograde Amnesia guys pointed out an episode or two ago that there's a mole person, there's a moose person.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing made of it. It's just they're there.
Yeah. There's not been
And
much of an
there they
attempt
are.
to explain with the world building yet.
Yeah.
Demi-humans or like why they are here or whatever. It's not like Final Fantasy IX where you have...
Although there was some degree of something like that, I think, when we were down in the cave, in Baal's cave, because he says, do you notice anything different? And past here there's no human skulls. But, and this could just be me, this could be the graphics being weird, but the skulls up top were animal bones.
Yeah, different
And
bones.
at the advent of humans, those skulls started to change too. They got bigger, they changed in a different way.
Right.
The animals were reacting to humans' presence as well. I don't know if that's relevant here. I'm just pointing out that there's something
that's a good thing to
there
point out. Yeah, that they
that
evolved.
they've shown us. Yeah, the
naturally
animals
in the
started to
world.
evolve as well.
But humans
Like
did
in
not
response to
evolve,
humans.
right?
And
Because
humans
they
did not
advented from the Eldritch crash.
Somewhere else.
But in any case, it was just funny that
This is the first one that has a portrait.
it's a dolphin man
Sir!
just talking, and everyone. It's just normal to everyone, right? It's just kind of funny.
like, thank you, Dolphin Man.
It's just kind of funny. It's just like there hasn't really been a much of an attempt yet to explain, like, anyways, to establish this as a thing in the world.
Clearly done on purpose because this is just a normal thing in
To
the
them,
world.
right.
And in what way they explain it to us, the players, will be a little bit different. But I hope they do explain it soon because it's just kind of strange.
But
Something's a
it's
little off there.
fitting that a dolphin man is like the sonar guy on
Yes.
the team. Right?
Like, oh, we're picking up some
He's
frequencies
like listening
and we can
to
feel
the
it.
sonar, and he can
Yeah.
hear, all the nuances.
So these animal people likely do retain some ability of the animal despite speaking and otherwise being
Sure.
basically human.
Oh, and by
It
the way,
seems.
I don't know if you noticed this, but Retrograde Amnesia, in the video that they shared with us, they had a framed portrait up behind them.
Yeah.
It's Franz.
It's Porpoise Man? That's great. I didn't know this.
They have a Franz artwork.
Oh, great. People
behind
should
them.
go back and look at that. That's awesome.
Franz, what beast. Okay, so anyways, now we need to get to this part. So you see Elly leading the other 5 Gebler soldiers, right? We talked about this, I think, in the last episode, how they didn't respect her authority.
Yes,
They're
we
talking
mentioned
down to
it, but
her.
this is the scene, right?
Yeah, they're talking
She's
down to her.
clearly their leader. I don't know that they've ever gone on a mission together.
No, she's
This
just
is the first
been
time,
put
right?
in charge of them
Yes.
as a commanding officer. She's just been assigned to that. But she's 18 years old. These guys, I would assume, are all in their late 20s, 30s.
Yeah,
they're way older
special
than her.
forces, yeah.
They don't respect her at all. They don't listen to her. They're telling her to stay out of their way, right?
Right, they'll handle it on their own.
They can take care of it.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, but she has a gear, and they stop by to like take a look at her. Ooh, this is one of those like new models.
Right, it's a special kind of gear.
Right. So you have like, anyways, yeah, a special gear. They're excited to see what it can do, kind of a thing. But they're like, oh, like why is she the one piloting it? You know.
Because it's pink and elegant and thin.
And then they're kind of joking around with each other. Anyways. They take off. So they're actually headed to the same place where Faye is going. So that Gebler unit that Elly is leading is going to the same place.
Yeah, kind of towards the mountains. And
that Faye is going to.
Yeah.
So you climb up a bunch of mountains. You're going through some caves. You're kind of getting into position. And as you're on your way there, this group of Gebler units flies overhead and they find you.
Yeah.
Or find Faye and his group. And so Faye like motions them on, like, keep going, like, I'll take care of this, like, just, get into position, like, keep going, like, let me worry about this.
Faye's very confident.
Yeah, well, he should be.
Well, I know, for good reason. Everything that the rest of Elly's group says from this point on is like, what? We're the lambs. How is he beating us? And then the next guy says it. Oh, how is he so strong? We're the lambs. They're the lambs. We're the right people. How come he's so strong?
How can a lamb beat us?
They don't get it. And we've heard them say this many times. Each time we fight them, they're always like, how are you so strong? Like, they don't get it.
So anyways, they all gang up, and she's like, I didn't tell you to attack. I didn't give the command. They're like, F you, we don't care. We're going to kill him.
Yeah, and so we kind of...
So you fight them. It's like a three-phase boss battle here. You fight the 5 guys, 2 in the first round, 3 in the second round. And like you're saying, they're all like, how is this possible? Yeah. Right? Typical. And then, I can't remember which of them. It's not Rank, nor is it Breuer.
Franz?
It's Vance, I think.
Oh, Vance, that's it.
Vance is all like, he's like way pissed off. And so he's like,
this is so annoying, yeah.
Vance, get a hold of yourself. He's like, why am I losing to a lamb? Something's wrong, way wrong. And I need more drive is what he says.
Yes, that's right.
He's like, I just need more. I need more drive. So Vance is asking to use more of the drug drive so he can get back up and keep fighting. Elly is really struggling here because she's struggling between her feelings for Faye, but also her loyalty to Solaris and to Gebler, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like, I have to protect my team against Faye, who's like beating the fetch out of them.
Yes, but also her team is a bunch of lowlifes.
Yes.
So she may not feel all that motivated to help them.
But she's debating whether or not to use drive.
Yes.
Because if she uses drive, it's going to... We haven't really necessarily completely described... we talked about it in a previous episode, but drive essentially like brings you to your full power potential. Mm-hmm. It doesn't ever push you beyond it. It's like whatever your natural potential is, drive just more or less maximizes your senses to their full potential. Full strength, full stamina, everything. When you're on drive, it's like you are at maximum levels of your individual potential. Her individual potential is much higher than these other guys.
It seems so.
So when she's going to take drive, she knows what that means. And we get this in the flashback that we saw pieces of back in Black Moon Forest.
We saw parts. We saw
so
the aftermath.
she's like running through a hallway, right?
Yeah.
And you hear like people telling her like, let's get the actual the dialogue. She's like, what are you doing? And you got the canted angle, which
and we're from the perspective of the people chasing her.
What are you doing? Don't worry, it's just the drive.
The drive.
And they like corner her, and then
she sees the same event over and over.
Ducks
and over.
And keeps running.
Yeah.
And it's like the drive will just readjust you. And she's like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
It'll just readjust your balance and make you feel good. She's like, I don't want it. I don't want to use it. She's like refusing to use it.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, this is like required. of
Right, I think
everybody
everyone
in
has
Mugen.
to use it.
They have
it
to
seems
use it
like
to
she knows what it
graduate.
will do, so it makes me wonder if she had taken it before.
So
Because she knows that it will be bad.
So they're saying, you think we're going to make... So please go away. I like how it's just interrupting in the middle of it. You think we're going to make an exception because your father's top brass? Like, you have to take
so
it.
we learned, so Elly's dad...
Yeah. He's a high-ranking official in Solaris.
And we may have learned something like that before.
But
that's
he also is compassionate towards lambs.
Yeah. So
But he's a
some of the top
high-ranking officer in Solaris.
people are like that, yeah.
Now, we get this shot here, and this resembles a little bit of what you get a lot of on Disc 2, where they put the character in a spotlight like this.
Yes, yeah.
But you also see the scene happening behind, right?
Yep.
You have no recollection. There were no records on mental enhancement drug use up until now. It was sudden. She was probably a type that can't handle the drive. That probably caused her lapse into delirium and her loss of self-control. You mean the unconscious burst of pent-up
Antipathy, where she just didn't care about people.
And then that last line, you mean antipathy, but everyone has that.
Everyone has that. Yeah, everyone just becomes careless when they take drugs.
So a byproduct or a symptom of the drug is you stop caring, right, about people. Is that why the innate ability is so high? So her innate ability, her innate potential is higher than most people.
Yeah.
Yes. What did the commander call these girls again, or those girls again?
They're all girls.
It's probably higher than they are. Then it's an instantaneous jump in numerical value, but we can use her as a test subject in front of Eric. Or we can't use her as a test subject in front of Eric. It's a pity we can't manage it since there is so much potential. So this is all setting up the fact that she has a higher potential than the other guys. So when she takes drive, it's going to like really be a bad thing. We'll leave you to the Bureau. Stay at your residence until further notice. Don't worry. You have power worthy of the chosen ones. It's those weak people's fault for not being able to withstand your powers. She killed all these guys.
And that's
that
like
were
a
forcing her to take
rationalization
drive,
in her
right?
mind.
So that scene where there's all the blood on the walls.
It's like,
and all
well, if
those
they
dead
were
people,
stronger, they wouldn't have died. It's not
the people
your fault.
are like, oh, it's not your fault that you have a high power potential and they couldn't like stop you.
Yeah, they were too
like,
weak.
Don't worry about that.
And that's part of the meritocracy thing, where it's
Right.
like, you're more skilled than them, so here you are, and they're gone.
So that's the end of that scene, and we kind of, well, I guess that, no, it's not over yet.
Well,
They're
now
kind
we
of
see
approaching her,
exactly
and then
what
you'll see the
happens.
carnage that happens, right? Please stop it, and then you kind
They
of
shoot
cuts
her
to all the blood.
Yeah,
And,
so they give her a shot. She completely blacks out, has no memory. She wakes up, blood on her hands, everything's destroyed all around her. Tons of people are dead.
yeah, and so Rank is telling Vance here not to take any more drive. It's going to ruin his mind. Vance's like, I don't care. I'm already messed up as it is. And it's like, stop this now. I'll handle it. So she makes the decision at that point that she's going to take drive and that she's going to, fight to protect her comrades here. And that's where you end up fighting against Elly.
Yes. Can I, this might be too late. I might need to make a note for later.
Okay, go for it.
I'm just going to bring up, did you bring up the thing about, what's his name, Dan?
Dan?
And the graffiti that he leaves around town?
Oh, yes.
Did we bring that up in an episode already?
Okay, so we haven't yet.
Should we do that
This
later?
was another thing people were asking us to talk about.
We could maybe,
So
okay.
on the back of the signs in
the
Lahan,
signposts.
there's messages, and
Yes.
one of them says like, the one in town says something like Alice and Faye are in love or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you go up to Citan's house, the signpost outside of his house, you go to the back side and read it. Let me get like the exact.
Which, by
thing
the way,
it
that
says.
sign says Citan with an S-H-I-T-A-N.
Yeah, Shitan.
Yeah.
They were the what do you call it? The texture.
Yeah, the texture
The signpost.
has it read differently, which is
Yeah.
how the romanization of the Japanese would technically have read.
Right.
But they changed it in the localization. But they didn't change the actual game.
All right, this might take me just a second to find, but this was tweeted at us just so I can get exactly the words, right?
I just think it's interesting. I don't know if there's anything here.
I know where you're going with it.
Yes.
I know where you're going with it.
Because we're talking about drive, and specifically how
forcibly-
drive was developed by
Yeah.
forcibly injecting people.
Yes.
All the military have to take it, but also it's tested on the lambs first.
Yes.
And it's an injection that has negative consequences sometimes, especially if you take too much of it.
Okay, I don't know the exact words, and it's going to take too long to find.
Yes.
But basically, it's spelled badly, which is what
Yes.
points to it being Dan. Dan wrote something on the back of Citan's post outside of his house, where he says, "Stop injecting people, you quack."
You quack. Now, we just heard from Citan directly from his mouth. I did not like the experiments on the lambs.
Yes.
I am against it. But it seems in some way that Dan was receiving injections from Citan and he didn't like it and they were having negative consequences and he calls him a quack because of it and in some way hints that possibly those injections are responsible for his large forehead and for his receding hairline as a 10-year-old kid.
He says something about his forehead of justice or something like that, and then stop injecting people, you quack.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this is referring to. I don't know if we learn any more about that in general, but I did think this was a good time to bring that up.
Good thing to bring up. I'm not going to talk about it right now.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll talk about it maybe later.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Just
so
everybody
Elly
knows.
goes nuts with the drive, freaks out. She fights Faye. Faye keeps trying to call her back.
Yeah.
And be like, no, Elly, this isn't you. Like, you cared about me, right? Because what she's saying, the antipathy part of it, right?
Yeah.
When she's under the influence of the drug, she's acting as if she doesn't care.
And her character portrait
about
changes
him or
too.
yeah, she gets
She's
freaky
pretty
face.
different, yeah.
She's using something called air rods, which are animum ether response offensive drones.
Yes.
Within Gebler, there are only a handful of people capable of using them, Hemhold says. From what I hear, it should only be people from the element class. So Elly,
So then that's where she was.
Elly is
the fourth element.
strong enough to be an element.
So she would be a current element, not a former element.
She was in consideration for the elements. She is in their
because
league.
she can control. So she's at that level, but she's not, possibly not officially.
She is not officially an element
I
right
see.
now.
Okay.
She's not been accepted as
But
an
she
element.
has an
but she
element
has
ability.
that potential.
The potential, as
the
they
element
said.
class.
Okay, crazy.
So they're basically all of the guys who were making fun of her earlier are realizing she's really powerful. When under the influence of drive, it becomes obvious she's very strong.
yes.
So, Faye's like, Elly, stop it. Why must we fight? And she says, why? It's obvious. It's divine providence. We are the chosen people, the able. Our purpose of existence is to subordinate the earth-dwelling lambs. Subordinate the earth-dwelling lambs. Those who stand in our way must be eliminated. And Faye's like, you're being controlled by the drug. She says, this is my true nature. There is no other. And he says, that's a lie. You once felt responsible, blaming yourself for causing the incident in Lahan and for landing there. You were considerate of me when I was troubled. The real you would never say anything like that. So he's trying to pull her back.
Yes.
The real her
And
back.
to some degree of success, because she starts to kind of flicker. She starts to, her real personality starts to come out in just short little bursts.
Because she's like, writhe, dance, die, and rot in obscurity here. And he's like, oh, do I have to fight you? He's starting to lose resolve. And it looks like it's over for you. I'll put you out of your misery now. Fear not. In return for treating me so kindly, I will kill you painlessly. Farewell, Faye. And then the drive starts wearing off. And she's like, oh, my head. And he's like, what's happened? Is something wrong? And she's like, wake up, snap out of it. He says to her, and she's like, silence, impertinent fool. I'll not listen to a lamb. That's not true. And then, no, I don't want this.
We kind of tackle her down a little, right?
Yeah,
we pin her
pins
down.
her down,
Yeah.
and then she says, I've no need for outward appearance of compassion. It continues to wear off. Faye, help me. This isn't me. She's saying in broken words.
Yeah.
Hang in there, Elly. Don't let go of your true self. She's like, no. Anyways, Faye gets out of the gear and approaches her. And goes to kind of help her as she kind of falls out of the influence of the drug.
Yeah, it seems like the drug's losing influence, which was pretty quick because she had just taken it.
Yeah.
So
It
I
doesn't
feel like
super
Faye,
long.
I feel like we had something to do with that.
Yeah.
That we
snapped
pulled her
of it.
out early, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm debating whether or not to say this. it's part of the theme of the game. The feminine and the masculine
People
needing
need
each
each other.
other. People needing each other. The symbol in Nissan, the man and the woman. Faye is drawn to her.
It seems so, yeah.
She is drawn to him, and he's helping her.
And she's helping him.
And she's helping him.
Yes.
There is a very big connection here with this animus thing, and the balance, and the two people becoming whole or becoming one in each other and helping each other. That was all part of like the doctrine of Nissan. So Faye was determined that whole fight to like, no, this isn't the real you. I'm going to help you find your wholeness as a person. Like, you know, this is the beginning of that for Elly and Faye, right? Well, I guess the beginning of it when they met, but you know, it's starting to really take hold now at this point. And she's like, you know, I warned you. I said the next time we'd meet, we'd be enemies. He's like, but there's no reason for you to do this to yourself just so we can fight. There's no reason for you in a fight. None at all. She's like, there was no other choice. I'm a Solaris officer. I can't turn my back on my unit in the mission. She's like, why did you have to use drive? I didn't want to. When I use it, I change. I feel like I'm dominated by some unknown power that I never wanted.
In the Japanese, the word is gone. When I use drive, I'm gone.
Oh.
Like, I'm absent.
Oh, so it's like a different person takes over.
Yeah, it's a different person, yeah.
There's a power in me, and I don't want to admit it, but I wanted to protect my allies, so I had no choice but to use the drive. Faye says, Elly, you're the same as me. Again, this about being the same as me, right?
Right.
Elly, the same?
Where it's like, I don't want to do things, but I end up doing them, yeah.
Probably. I felt I knew you ever since I first met you. Probably because our problems are so similar. Remember, he knew her name before she had told him her name?
Yes, that's right. Don't do this to Elly.
Yeah,
in quotes, Elly.
And he's like, oh, I felt like I knew that somehow already. I knew your name somehow. Now she's even saying, I felt like I knew you before I met you, kind of a thing. Now,
the romance.
She looks like Sophia.
Yes, and she looks like
and
Sophia.
And he was painting Sophia.
So I wonder, 500 years ago.
Juicy.
Humans don't happen to live 500 years in Xenogears, right?
We'll find out, I guess. Faye says, I'm here for you. It may not be much, but at least I can relate to how you feel. And Elly says, what? Are you saying that we lick each other's wounds? Faye's like, no, that's not, well, yeah, I guess I am saying that. Sorry.
In a weird way, yeah.
And Elly's like, I'm sorry, I'm not being fair, am I? He says, no, I'm just pessimistic sometimes, but even so, it's better than worrying about it by yourself. She says, Faye, and he says, you won't change your mind to her? And she says, please don't look so sad, I have no choice, it's my only home. And he says, I have to go, my friends are waiting for me. If you can, get out of the army, Elly, that suit doesn't suit you at all. Or that look doesn't suit you at all.
That look doesn't suit you.
And then he gets in the gear and he takes off.
Which was a very cool way of ending it on his terms and walking away.
So we got a split here and get Kason to the train station. We ended just in time.
But we didn't talk about the repair robot.
Oh, the repair robot.
My favorite character. No, I'm just kidding. There's nothing to talk about there. He's just there. He got lost on the mountain trails and he's like, I have these supplies. You guys need help?
Buy some supplies? I'll tell you, a boss battle's coming up. Anytime somebody's next to him, like, I've got stuff to sell to you. You better take a look at it.
Don't mind if I do.
But anyways, good stuff. I will again pin as a pinned comment where to play up to for the next episode. But things are really starting to come together, and in the next episode, some really insane stuff is going to happen.
Oh, sweet.
Really crazy stuff.
Can't wait.
So excited to dive into it. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you again next time. Peace out.